All right, let's head to the news hour and let's get right onto it. Government has been called on to put up small and medium enterprise development bank to enhance business activities from the grassroots that have been hit hard by the continuing effects of COVID-19 pandemic. Experts say that Uganda Development Bank, or the UDB, is meant for larger business owners but not small and medium-sized enterprises. The revelation was made during the third E-Bombay Business Summit at the Uganda Revenue Authority head offices. More of the details. Uganda Development Bank Limited is the country's national development finance institution with a mandate to accelerate socio-economic development in Uganda through sustainable financial interventions. Consistent with this mandate, the bank supports projects within the private sector that demonstrate potential to deliver high socio-economic value in terms of job creation, improved production output, tax contribution and foreign exchange generation, among other outcomes. UDB has been criticized for putting unnecessary conditions that cannot be fulfilled by most SMEs to access cheaper capital. The bank, which government recently recapitalized, has been giving capital support to a number of enterprises, especially in agribusiness, value addition, manufacturing, tourism, among others.
UDB is basically addressing the large companies, and we have so many small companies that actually cannot access, even startup. It's very possible that they can have a funding for startup because it is happening in other countries. Why not in Uganda, where we have a big high rate of unemployment? It should happen. The other thing is that the 100 billion for SMEs for COVID, it's not happening. I don't know what is happening with it. I don't know that it will be released when COVID is no longer there. That is extremely important. We are telling businesses to go on digital, but data is still very expensive, extremely expensive. And I think we need to look at it. We cannot encourage people to go online, but it's extremely expensive. They can't learn online, they can't trade online, they cannot transact online. Forget about WhatsApp. We are talking about real business, where a small business has to go on and start transacting. We need to look at it seriously. And when it comes to Ugandans that now I'm speaking to, we need to know that taxes that we are paying are meant to develop our country.
I heard that UDB money was a COVID-19 recovery fund. So it was to resurrect all companies that had done what had got a downfall, but we've not received that money. I call upon whoever is there having that money. Come over, the manufacturers are very many. Come over to Kabodemi to also get on that money. We have never seen on that money.
During the third E-Bombay Business Summit organized by Uganda Revenue Authority under a theme 30 years of developing Uganda together, URA was challenged to understand the pain that business owners have during this era, the pandemic, before taxing them. Micro and small businesses experienced a larger decline in businesses' activity compared to medium and large firms, as well halted operations due to their inability to implement preventive health measures.
That the URA has at the moment to increase. I think you said you're working towards increasing collections to about 24 billion shillings. I know your target from finance was about 22. But from our perspective, last year the economy grew by 3.3%. The previous year it grew by 3%. It's projected this year to grow by 4.3. I don't even think we shall get 4.3 given the current economic situation. URA's target is growing year on year. Can government reduce the pressure on the URA? Because when you put URA on pressure, they have passed on that pressure to taxpayers. And then they will go for the long-hanging fruits. They will not go for the people who are not in a tax net. They will come after the businesses that are already compliant, that are already in the system. So where is that additional, Mr. Kagomire, where is that 24 billion?
And as Uganda Revenue Authority, we're trying to do our best to see how we can continue producing even amidst these circumstances. So we've come up with measures, Mildred, as a revenue authority, that would help us get out of this ditch. Whether you want or not, COVID is with us. So we have to think of how we can work with COVID, and even when we think it will be after, we don't know when it will be over. So as URA, we came up with so many measures. I don't know, I can mention a few. Like me, who is coming from the customs side, we've tried to do our best to make sure that we simplify our processes and procedures. Good enough COVID found us when we were automated. I wouldn't want to imagine if we were in a manual environment how life would be. So we make sure right from the port of Mombasa and Dar es Salaam to our borders in Malaba, Busia, and Mutukula, up to Kampala, Chikubo, and Kampala in the warehouses, all the processes are automated.
Uganda Revenue Authority was told to identify people with comprehensive business ideas and support them then after the sector will reap more as far as tax collection is concerned.
Invest in innovative businesses. Identify young people.
We want to make our tax education more clear, so that we are down to earth to this person who is paying and says, why am I paying this tax? Why am I paying this tax? When they get that philosophy, they will just pay willingly. They will just pay willingly. And they will not leave the burden to a few, like you're talking about. You'll find that into a person saying, where are they registering from? I don't have to run after them to register to get a tax identification number. Then I tell them you are not ready to pay. You've not reached the threshold. When am I reaching the threshold? In 1 year. That is the spirit. We want to start this financial year with 2.5 million.
The rate of occurrence of tax evasion is higher in Uganda than in the rest of East Africa, where the taxpayer has latitude to decide whether or not to be compliant. As in the case of income taxes, Ugandans seem to be less compliant than other East Africans.
Most Ugandans don't want to pay tax because they are ignorant about what paying tax is. If I may say, they don't know the use of the tax. They are just crying out there in the background. Loads are not there. Many things that are not there, but they don't know that the tax they have to pay. It is the tax that makes the loads, infrastructure, everything. They're just ignorant. Once we wake up in the morning, get his or mangoes, go to the roadside, begin doing what? Selling. Go buy fuel at 1,000, but not knowing that the tarmac loads, the big business houses that the government are putting out for people who doesn't have enough capital, the markets that are being built by the government, it is all done by tax that we people do pay to the government and improves on our status of living. Because we Uganda being a developing country, want to reach the state where Uganda becomes like a developed country. But we cannot reach at the state of being a developed country without paying enough tax to the government. Because everything that is done in a country is done by what? By the taxes that people do pay to the government. If we say like countries like America, or countries like, people understand what tax is. Because once you pay enough tax to the government will be able and capable of making the country be developed or reach at the state where other countries are. So tax plays a big much role on improving the standards of living of the people from the what? Like if I may say now, we are being vaccinated by the COVID-19 vaccines, but at no cost. So where do you think that money will come from to pay the workers or the doctors that will be coming to areas to vaccinate you?
Gone are the days where revenue authorities are known to be more running after people, closing things, blocking people, and we think we want to make our tax education more clear, so that we are down to earth to this person who is paying and says, why am I paying this tax? Why am I paying this tax? When they get that philosophy, they will just pay willingly. They will just pay willingly. And they will not leave the burden to a few, like you're talking about. You'll find that into a person saying, where are they registering from? I don't have to run after them to register to get a tax identification number. Then I tell them you are not ready to pay. You've not reached the threshold. When am I reaching the threshold? In 1 year. That is the spirit.
Uganda collects less in domestic taxes than other countries in the region. For revenue, the Ugandan government depends more on customs duty, on taxes that are difficult to dodge, withholding tax, and on taxes where there are inbuilt incentives to comply, such as value-added tax, The framework for improving tax compliance consists of 3 broad channels, making it easier for taxpayers to comply, enforcement and increasing trust in the government, in its spending practices and in the tax collection agency itself. All right, now, the Uganda Development Bank Limited is the country's national development financial institution with the mandate to accelerate social economic development in Uganda through sustainable financial interventions. Consistent with this mandate, the bank supports projects within the private sector that demonstrate potential to deliver high socio-economic value in terms of job creation, improved production output, tax contribution, and foreign exchange generation, among other outcomes. Now, Uganda Development Bank has been criticized for putting unnecessary conditions that cannot be fulfilled by most SMEs to access cheaper capital. Now, the bank, which government recently recapitalized, has been giving capital support to a number of enterprises, especially in agribusiness, value addition, tourism, manufacturing, among others. So if you look at Ruth Biyinzika from the Private Sector Foundation, she actually said the Uganda Development Bank is actually not suitable for the small and medium-sized enterprises. Why? Here's the argument. First and foremost, you see, with the Uganda Development Bank, the interest rates are high. When we are starting up with the show, I had the news recap where I was actually saying where the Speaker of Parliament, Jacob Olanya, was actually urging the Uganda Development Bank to actually cut, to reduce the interest rates to favor the small and medium-sized enterprises. Reason being, we have a number of them who are actually venturing into the idea, and they would actually suggest that if this is so, what should happen in the due course? Because I'm looking at the idea where most probably everyone is looking at a system of, let's say, you are running a small shop dealing in clothing, or let's say you're dealing in shoes, and you go for a loan and they give you a very huge amount because there's a certain amount of money you're supposed to actually apply for if at all you want to apply for a loan, and at the end of the day there is a specific interest rate you're supposed to pay. So she actually said, she noted that it is better for the government to actually open up a different banking sector for the small and medium-sized enterprises. This will in return give them a bigger opportunity to actually apply for the loans and also venture in the different segments of the business. Or maybe the Uganda Development Bank should decrease the interest rates to favor the small and medium-sized enterprises, because as we speak, a number of them are now, a number of businesses are best in the small and medium-sized enterprises. Now, if you look at the incident, Uganda collects less in domestic taxes than any other countries in the region of the East African Community Bloc. For revenue, the Ugandan government depends more on customs duty or on taxes where there are inbuilt incentives to comply, such as value-added tax, as the framework for improving tax compliance consists of 3 bond channels, making it easier for taxpayers to comply or facilitate enforcement and increasing trust in the government, in its spending practices and in the tax collection agency itself. All right, let's move on. Online hackers have stolen 14 billion from Ugandans in 12 months, according to the Interpol report. Now, the latest figures compiled by Interpol Uganda show that hackers have become more lethal during the COVID-19 era. The statistics on cyber crimes contained in the report by Interpol Director, Senior Commissioner Charles Birungi, indicate that $4 million, about 14.4 billion Ugandan shillings, has been lost to online fraudsters in the last 12 months in Uganda. More of the story. Interpol indicates that 14.4 billion shillings has been lost in more than 200 cases of high-tech, international and economic crimes, of which bank fraud issues of fake visa and online business fraud topped the list. A police IT expert who preferred anonymity said Ugandan banks are being hacked almost every month, but they have chosen silence as a way of not scaring their clients. The policeman's argument is based on the fact that in the last 12 months, banks have lost more than $3 million, which translates into 10.9 billion shillings. Citing an example of recent unauthorized access to Chambogo University's system, where data for more than 2,500 students was deleted, CID spokesperson Charles Twine advises companies to avoid hiring outsiders to run their systems. He argues that a person who is not a permanent staff would disrupt the system once a disagreement erupts. Apart from bank fraud that took a lion's share of money lost to cyber kingpins, issues of fake visa $42,500 1.9 billion Ugandan shilling fee. Business fraud cost loss of $112,441 over 393 million Ugandan shillings. Internet fraud caused losses of 300 million shillings. Email hacking was a loss of 124 million shillings. All right, now, Interpol indicates that 14.4 billion shillings has been lost in more than 12 cases of high-tech as international and economic crimes, of which bank fraud, issues of fake visa and online business fraud topped the list. Now, a police IT expert who preferred anonymity said Ugandan banks are being hacked and almost every month, but they have chosen silence as a way of not scaring their clients. Now, the policeman's argument is based on the fact that in the last 12 months, banks have lost more than $3 million, which translates into 10.9 billion Ugandan shillings. Now, citing an example of recent unauthorized access to Chambogo University's system, where data for more than 2,500 students was deleted. Now, CID spokesperson Charles Twine advises companies to avoid hiring outsiders to run their systems. He argues that a person who is not the permanent staff would disrupt the system once a disagreement erupts, more so in regards to money matters. All right. On to the next one. Now, court orders former MTN finance manager to refund 5 billion shillings of the stolen 10.2 billion Ugandan shillings. The Court of Appeal has ordered Patrick Sentongo, the former finance manager at the MTN Uganda Limited, to compensate his former employer 5 billion shillings. A panel of 3 judges, Kenneth Kakuru, Muzamiru Mitangulu, Chibedi and Irene Muliagonja, have also ordered Sentongo to continue serving his 10-year sentence for the embezzlement of funds. More of the details. In 2012, Sentongo, Joan Nabugwao, Brian Okuru, Angela Ayo, and Eria Bariamijuka, all former employees of MTN Uganda Limited, were charged before the Anti-Corruption Division of the High Court in Kampala of embezzlement and fraud. Prosecution alleged that Sentongo and others between May and December 2011 stole money from MTN using the company mobile money computer systems called Fandamo. They did so by creating fictitious journals and exiting money through the MTN public access shop, which was operated by Joan Nabugwao. Prosecution also alleged that the accused persons created pseudo-person on the system who transacted as ghosts and drained money from the adjustment account for discrepancy through the dispute account to 17 subscribers. Accomplices such as Nabugwao and Sentongo's wife, Sauda Nachimbugwe, who was an agent of MTN. An audit by MTN revealed that Sentongo and others had stolen from the company. Prosecution also alleged that the accused persons created pseudo-persons on the system who transacted as ghost accounts and drained money from the adjustment account for discrepancy through the dispute account to 17 subscribers. And accomplices such as Nabugwao and Sentongo's wife in Sauda Nachimbugwe, who was an agent of MTN, and an audit by MTN revealed that Sentongo and others had stolen from the company millions of money. Now they are set to compensate over 14. Now they actually set to compensate over 5 billion Ugandan shillings out of the stolen 10.2 billion Ugandan shillings. Now, speaking of fraud, remember, we've had issues of the fact that during this period of COVID-19, fraud has actually increased, more so online, mobile money transactions, when it comes to banking systems. A lot has actually been transpiring. So you could definitely see and agree on the fact that banking has actually faced a very big challenge out there. And away from that, let's move on to the next one. As the Fisheries Directorate, together with the Uganda People's Defence Forces Fisheries Protection Unit, the FPU, and the Ugandan Revenue Authority, URA, impounded close to 20 tons of immature fish in 4 trucks at Pondre border. Now, the value of the impounded fish is yet to be determined, as the government has impounded tons of immature fish. More of this story. The trucks, destined for the Democratic Republic of Congo, were impounded at Pondwe border in Kasese on October 10th, on Wednesday driven to the Fisheries Directorate head office in Entebbe pending further investigations. The trucks, that are all Fuso in MEC, bear registration number plates UAF 813L, UBB 894Z, UBA 893G, and UBH 606P were impounded for allegedly ferrying immature fish as goods in transit from Kenya to the Democratic Republic of Congo. However, after securing a court order to break the seals on the trucks, officials from the Fisheries Directorate, FPU and URA on Friday confirmed that the 4 trucks had carried large volumes of immature fish that were caught from within Uganda and then repacked in Kenya to DR Congo. Tom Mukasabu Kenya, the Commissioner, Fisheries Control, Regulation and Quality Assurance at the Agriculture Ministry, says each of the trucks of 5 tons of salted and smoked immature fish, mainly Nile perch and Nile tilapia, caught from Lake Choga, not Lake Turkana, as the drivers had declared at Malaba border on October 1st. But Bank of Uganda's annual report shows a decline from 23,141 tons of fish exports worth $146 million in June 2020 to 15,149 tons of fish exports worth $118.6 million in July 2021. This was a decline by over 7,000 tons and a cumulative loss of shillings 99 billion. In the early 2000s, fish exports nearly collapsed due to poor fishing methods that almost depleted the water bodies of some fish species. The exports, however, picked up between 2017 to 2019 after the FPU personnel deployed on Lake Victoria and other water bodies to curb illegal fishing. However, after securing a court order to break the seals on the trucks, officials from the Fisheries Department or the Fisheries Directorate, FPU, the URA on Friday, confirmed that the 4 trucks had carried large volumes of immature fish that were caught from within Uganda and then repacked in Kenya for export to the Democratic Republic of Congo. Now, Tom Mukasabu Kenya, the Commissioner, Fisheries Control, Regulation and Quality Assurance at the Agriculture Ministry, says each of the trucks had over 5 tons of salted and smoked immature fish, mainly Nile perch and Nile tilapia, caught from Lake Choga, not Lake Turkana, as the drivers had declared at Malaba Port on October 1st. But according to the Bank of Uganda's annual report, shows a decline from 23,141 tons of fish exports worth $146 million in June 2020 to 15,149 tons of fish exports worth $118.6 million in July 2021. This was a decline by over 7,000 tons and a cumulative loss of 99 billion shillings. Now, in the early 2000s, fish exports nearly collapsed due to poor fishing methods that almost depleted the water bodies of some fish species. The exports, however, picked up between 2017 to 2019 after the FPU personnel were deployed on Lake Victoria and other water bodies to curb illegal fishing. As we're winding up with the news hour, let's head to the foreign scene and check out what is happening in Kenya. As police officers in Muranga are holding a man who vandalized Safaricom telecommunication equipment worth over 2 million Kenyan shillings. Now, the suspect, a one-lane Nganga, reportedly gained access to a transmitter station after masquerading as a Safaricom engineer. Now, the station guard, however, became suspicious of his activities and alerted the police officers, but the suspect escaped into his vehicle and sped off immediately. He drove towards Sabasaba with the police vehicle hot on the chest behind him. The Land Cruiser caught up with the suspect's vehicle a few kilometers past Sabasaba and pulled him over. Now, the Land Cruiser caught up with the suspect's vehicle a few kilometers past Sabasaba and pulled him over during that run, and with the police vehicle on the hot chest. So the telecommunication equipment that was actually discovered in the suspect's vehicle upon search by the officials was worth 2 million Kenyan shillings. So you could see the loss that Safaricom can get or to fall into. Now let's finalize with our news hours. The Ethiopian Airlines has entered an agreement to share flight routes with regional South African carrier Airlink as the continent's biggest airline expands its reach to a broader gap. Now, ET Group CEO Teolode Gabremariam said in a statement that the Ethiopian Airlines has entered into a series of partnerships with continental and global carriers. Now, the latest agreement lets travelers buy one ticket to fly across each airline's routes, connecting smaller South African towns with Ethiopian global reach. Now, the national carrier South African Airways recently emerged from a 17-month business rescue and resumed a handful of domestic and regional services last month. It had survived 4 decades on government bailouts and was shutting routes even before coronavirus hit. With a fleet of just 6 planes down from 46, South African Airways signed an agreement with Kenyan Airways last month with the long-term aim to create a pan-African airline. All right, that brings us to the end of our news hour. We head into a break. When we do return, we have an expert analysis. We're talking tourism in Uganda. Scam in tourism. Keep it SMB. Smart 24, driving business. Smart 24, driving business.